Between 22,000 to 10,500 years ago, the Sahara was a huge desert with no water, unable to support human life. The Nile River was crucial for water sources and therefore it was the central area to live in. This caused wars over the land. At the end of the Ice Age around 12,000 years ago, the Sahara turned into an expansive plain and led primitive humans to leave the Nile and go to other areas in the plains. A couple thousand years later, the desert began drying up again, causing the people to move out of the Sahara back into the area surrounding the Nile River. The Nile River played an important part with Egyptian religion, and the flooding of it actually became the basis of their calendar. The flooding of the Nile also played an important role in developing their religion, as humans at the time never worshipped a personalized form of God and believed in natural phenomena and magical powers. The flooding of the Nile made people fear and conceive the gods in a personalized form. In the late prehistoric period, every Egyptian town had a particular deity or god represented in a material or animal way, and eventually given human characteristics. During the New Kingdom, temples were made to honor the mythical family of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Ancient Egyptian was very complex since there is no single belief system. Although they share a common understanding of the creation of the world, many beliefs influenced by magic, mythology, science, medicine, psychiatry, spiritualism, and the belief in a higher power in the afterlife. According to the creation myth, Nu was the name of the dark chaos before the beginning of time, where Atum created himself using his thoughts and will. He was neither male nor female and had an all-seeing eye that could travel the universe. He created a hill for him to stand on and realized that he was alone. He spit out his son named Shu, whom became the god of air, and vomited his daughter, whom he named Tefnut, and made her the goddess of mist and moisture. They separated the chaos into light and dark. They made Jeb the earth and Nut the sky. Nut produced rain for Jeb in order to make things grow on earth. She also gave birth to the sun before dawn, and the sun would die at sunset. They also produced other gods like Isis, Osiris, Seth, and Nephthys. And one day, Shu and Tefnut got lost in Nu, and Atum was desperate to find them. He used his all-seeing eye around earth and up in the heavens to look for them. Atum was very happy when they returned and cried tears of joy. His tears hit the earth and they became the first man and woman in earth.
There are many Egyptian gods and goddesses that represented aspects of the Egyptian natural and supernatural surroundings. The physical form taken on by the various Egyptian gods were usually a combination of human and animal. Many were associated with one or more animal species. Ancient Egypt has its own original trinity, which consists of Osiris the father, Isis the mother, and Horus the son. Osiris was the god of death and the ruler of the underworld, also the god of resurrection and fertility. He was the first king of Egypt and is one of the most important gods. Osiris was portrayed as a bearded human mummy with green or black flesh. He was holding a shepherd's crook and a whip. On his head, he wears a white crown with ostrich feathers. He was murdered by his brother Seth, who wanted his throne. Seth chopped up Osiris's body and put the pieces in a box, which he sent floating down the Nile River. Isis, his sister and wife, was terrified and could not accept his death. With the help of other gods and goddesses, she found the box containing Osiris's body and put the pieces back together to restore him to life. Which Osiris became god of afterlife and ruling the underworld. By around 2000 BC, people believe that they can continue living in the afterlife. Isis was the daughter of earth god Geb and sky goddess Nut, and the sister of Osiris, Seth, and Nephthys. She was also the wife of Osiris and the mother of Horus. Isis is the god of love, fertility, magic, and motherhood, and death, healing, and rebirth. Isis is portrayed as a woman wearing a long sack dress with an empty throne on her headdress, which symbolizes she was an important source of the pharaoh's power. She was also seen as a woman with the headdress of a solar disk and horn. She became the most powerful of all of the gods and goddesses in ancient Egypt, a throne originally held by the sun god Ra. Ra was an uncaring god and caused great suffering to the people. Isis was aware of this, and she mixed some of Ra's saliva with mud and created a very poisonous snake. The snake bit Ra and caused him great pain and suffering. She offered to cure Ra, and he agreed. Isis told him she needs his true name to perform the ritual. Ra gave in, and as she was performing her magic, she uttered his true name. Ra was healed, but the power over life and death was transferred to Isis, making her the most important of them all. His power was used to benefit all of the people. Horus, god of the sky, he was the son of Isis and Osiris. When Horus was a baby, his father was murdered, and to keep him protected from being harmed, Isis hid him in the marshland of the Nile, where she protected him from poisonous snakes, scorpions, crocodiles, and wild animals. After fighting his uncle Seth, he became the king of Egypt. Since Seth was an evil god, he rebelled against Ra. Because of this, Ra has been trying to fight him and put an end to his rebellious ways. When Horus found out about this, he chose to help Ra defeat Seth. During this fight, Horus lost his eye. The eye of Horus became one of the most important symbols in ancient Egypt. When he lost his eye set out on a journey of its own. When the other gods tried to catch the eye, his eye began to cry. The tears became the first people of Egypt in ancient belief. Kings believed that they were descended from Horus, who was considered to be the first divine king of Egypt. Demons were more powerful than humans, but not as powerful as gods or goddesses. They were usually immortal, could be in more than one place at a time, and could affect the world as well as people in supernatural ways. Ammit was the most important demon figure. Ammit is the devourer of the dead, part crocodile, part leopard, and part hippopotamus. She is the devourer of hearts in the underworld. When a dead person's soul is found wanting after weighed by Anubis and judged by Osiris, it is thrown to her to eat. The social structure of ancient Egypt is sorted into a social pyramid. At the top of the pyramid were the pharaohs, the ruler of ancient Egypt. They made the laws and controlled the lands and resources. Egyptians believed that pharaohs lived on as a god in the afterlife. Usually carry a war scepter, and it symbolizes power and belief to carry magical powers that connect the mortal world to the underworld. Then it was the government officials, nobles, priests, and viziers. Priests were powerful intellectual leaders. They preserved the culture of Egyptian civilization, cared for the temples, and officiated in the religious rituals and sacrifices to the many gods. Viziers helped the pharaohs to govern. They were the chief administrators of ancient Egypt. They oversaw the treasury and the court system, among other duties. Next, it was the soldiers. They fought against foreigners and protected the Egyptian land. Scribes formed a special class of literate professionals. They performed important duties such as record-keeping, tax accounting, and the management of public works. Then it was the craftsmen. Ancient Egypt produced many skilled painters, sculptors, metalworkers, potters, woodworkers, and shipbuilders. Many craftsmen worked in shops close to the palace of the pharaoh. Peasants were primarily responsible for growing crops. When they were not busy farming, peasants were often used to construct irrigation works and help build tombs and temples. Some slaves in ancient Egypt were foreigners captured in war or traded to the Egyptians. Some slaves were forced to work in the fields or perform hard labor. Others worked as domestic slaves. System. The lower court is made up of a group of elders in each town. When a dispute is settled in lower court, both sides are heard and a common sense decision is made by lower court based on facts presented. If you didn't like the decision of the lower court, you could come before the vizier on a first-come, first-served bias and present your case again. The vizier tries to be fair and is not smart to come before the vizier unless your case is serious and has evidence to show that lower court's decision was an error because the vizier's decision was final. You can end up in more trouble if you were found guilty in a serious case. The punishment would be exile. Your children would be exiled with you. Supreme High Court. Judge was Pharaoh, who assigned his vizier to this job, to hear the case and act as a judge.
Egyptians used to bury their dead who were in the lower level in the social pyramid in the ground with pottery and other items surround the body. The bodies curled up into a fetal position. Royalty wanted fancier burials, so they had mastabas built, which were tombs made out of mud bricks. They came up with a method to preserve the body, which is called mummification. It consists of drying out the body, wrapping it in linen, and removing the organs except for the heart, which were put in separate containers. Mummification were only for pharaohs and wealthy people. Sometimes animals were also mummified, with the wealthy along with their fancy goods and pottery. The Egyptians believed that in order to have eternal life, they must have harmony and not sin, as it shows ungratefulness and threw off the balance of life. This was proved by the Book of the Dead that originated from paintings and inscriptions on tombs from the 3rd dynasty of Egypt. They were written on papyrus for the dead. It contains spells that help the soul to overcome the dangers of the afterlife, such as monstrous creatures. They also provided answers to questions regarding how pure their souls were that the gods will ask them. When a person dies, their soul is guided by Anubis to the Hall of Truth, where they make a negative confession or declaration of innocence. Negative confession is a list of 42 sins that the person has to say that they never participated in. If they said that they have participated in a sin, their soul is not pure and therefore does not deserve immortality. If the soul is believed to be pure, their heart is then weighed against the feather of Ma'at, or the feather of the truth. If the soul is believed to be pure, their heart is then weighed against the feather of Ma'at, or the feather of the truth. If the heart was lighter than the feather, then the soul passed to a life in paradise and immortality. If it doesn't pass, then the soul is eaten by Amut, the monster goddess. The Ankh, also known as the Key of Life, is a cross with a loop at the top, symbolizing mortal existence and the afterlife. The origin of the Ankh is unknown and there are many theories behind it. Some people believe that it symbolizes a sandal, which is part of their daily life. Some say it came from the image of Isis's belt buckle. Wallace Budge came up with a theory that it's associated with a jet, or the knot of Isis, which symbolizes fertility. The popularity of the Ankh arose in the early dynastic period, as the amount of Isis and Osiris cults increased. Many gods are depicted holding the Ankh, but they fell into the realm of Isis and her cult.
42 Commandments, also known as the 42 Laws of Ma'at. Ma'at was the goddess who personified the ideals of truth and righteousness. These 42 principles were known to all the ancient Egyptians. Egyptians believed that when they died, their spirits would be judged by these principal commandments. Person goes to the duat, the Egyptian underworld and judgment chamber. They weigh their heart against feathers. If it was lighter or equal in weight, they would be allowed to move on to the afterlife. If it was heavier than Ma'at's feather, the owner would be devoured by the god Amut. This was also known as Judgment of Osiris. After the spreading of Christianity, ancient Egyptian religion faded away. There aren't many followers in the modern day.